Hello everyone, how are you? Hope you are doing well. So today we will start reviewing the book. Firstly, we will start with Unit 1. Unit 1, it's about, or 1.1, it's about photosynthesis. Firstly, everyone he should know the definition of photosynthesis. You studied photosynthesis in grade 8 and also grade 7. So, a simple definition for photosynthesis, we will say it's a process in which green plants makes their own food. A process in which green plants make their own food. This is the easiest definition for photosynthesis. One more thing about photosynthesis, it's the formula. The formula of photosynthesis. As we know, this process to happen, to take place, it needs some substances. For example, firstly, it needs carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide. Plants get their carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, from the air, and also it needs water. Water, plants can absorb water from soil through roots. Then, by the help of sunlight, this carbon dioxide and water will be transferred into food, into sugar. This sugar, we call it glucose. Glucose plus oxygen. The oxygen gas will be released to the atmosphere. This process in photosynthesis, what it's happening, it's of energy. Transferring energy from sun, first from sunlight. This light will be absorbed by plant by a specific pigment. We call it chlorophyll. Chlorophyll, it's the green pigment that capture sunlight. This process, the process of photosynthesis, it happened in the leaves of plant. As you can see here in this drawing, here it's a plant cell. This is a plant cell. It consists of, as you can see, the green parts. Okay, this one, it's chloroplast. This chloroplast, each chloroplast organelle, it has chlorophyll in it. This chlorophyll will help to capture sunlight. Then, some questions. Think back to, or remember, what do you have already learned about photosynthesis? About what we just explained. A. Where do plants get carbon dioxide from? What do you think? From where plants will get the carbon dioxide? From atmosphere. Correct. B. Where do plants get water from? As we know, plants will get water from soil. Then, explain why photosynthesis only takes place inside chloroplast. Here, if you will take a look on the plant cell, you will see it consists of many organelles. It has vacuole, cytoplasm, nucleus, and chloroplast. Why the process of photosynthesis? It's happening only inside the chloroplast. The answer is because chloroplast, it has chlorophyll. Chlorophyll, the pigment that it captures sunlight. Okay, part 2. Now, when plant will make sugar or food for itself, usually plants make more than what they need. So, it will use some of the sugar and the extra one will be stored. Then what will happen? Plant will store the extra sugar, okay? Because glucose is soluble in water, so if plant will keep the extra food or the extra sugar just as glucose, so this glucose will dissolve in the water inside the cell. So to prevent this from happening, plant will store glucose inside uh, inside the cells of it in a different kind of carbohydrates. So the glucose is an example of carbohydrate, but carbohydrates, we have different types of it. For example, the glucose will be stored inside the plant as starch. So what's a starch? Starch, it's a molecule. It's made of thousands of glucose molecules linked together. So thousands of glucose linked together, they form a starch. Starch, it's insoluble. Okay, starch molecules are too big to dissolve in water. So in this way, plants will prevent the glucose from dissolving in the water. 1.2 Mineral salts for plants. As we know, plants, to grow, it needs food, it needs water, it needs carbon dioxide. But in addition to the water and carbon dioxide, it's still plant cells needs some substances. For example, these substances, we call them mineral salts, or another meaning or another name for it, it's fertilizers. Of course, all of you, you saw farmers, okay, when they want to grow plants, okay, what they do, they add some fertilizers to the soil. These fertilizers will plants will absorb it and then will use it in different ways. We have two main types of fertilizers. These two main types of fertilizers are nitrate, and the second one is magnesium. So two main fertilizers, two main mineral salts, nitrate and magnesium. So what's the function of each one of these fertilizers or this mineral salt? Nitrate is needed so that plant can make protein. Okay, so plants will need nitrate or will use nitrate to make proteins. And as you know, the function of proteins in the cell, it helps making new cells. What's that mean? It helps plant to grow. So as you can see here, plants that are short of nitrate are stunted, small and yellow. If you look at these two drawings, you will see here we have same kind of plant, but here it's green, it's big, but here it's small and yellow. The why these two plants are in this way? It's because of the protein. Here, this plant, it's getting enough amount of protein, while this plant, it's not getting enough amount of protein. So nitrate, it's needed for plant to make protein. What's the function of protein? It help making new cells. Then magnesium. Magnesium also, it's needed for what? It's needed for making chlorophyll. So what do you think? If we have a plant without magnesium or less amount of magnesium, how this plant will look like? Here we have the answer. If you look at this leaf, usually, as we know, the leaf colors, it's what? It's always green, okay, or usually it's green. But as you can see here, what is happening, the leaf, it turned to be yellow. So this tomato leaf is showing symptoms of magnesium deficiency. Magnesium deficiency, it means less magnesium inside the cells. 1.3 Plants and water. Water, we just explained that plants it needs water for photosynthesis. But in fact, plants will need water for many reasons. Oh, it's not only for just for doing the photosynthesis. Water for support. Plants needs water for supporting itself. For example, if you will take a look now on these two plants, we said in photosynthesis, plants will use water, will need water. Okay, so how this water it's transporting from, or how this water it's going up from soil to the stem and then to the leaves, it's through these tubes. So water, okay, water will moves up to the leaves. Okay, while the water it's moving up to the leaves, okay, there are mineral salts dissolved in water. There are minerals, salts dissolved in the water, and this is how they are transported around the plant. Then water for cooling. The plant is same as us, as humans. Us, when we feel it's hot, what will happen? Our bodies will start sweating. By sweating, our bodies will cool down. The same thing is happening in plants. When we say plants will absorb water, and water it gets in the xylem and then into the leaves. Inside a leaf, here it's a leaf, okay, this structure is a leaf, okay, and this leaf it has opening in it, we call it stoma or stomata. So when water it evapore through this stomata, when it evapore it will take some of the heat from with it. So water evaporate through stomata, it takes some of the heat. Then at the end, what will happen? The plant will cool down. 1.4 flowers. Flowers, if you look at this picture, you will see we have different kinds of flowers with different shapes, different colors, bright colors. Okay, but what do you mean by flowers, or what are flowers? Flowers are the reproductive organs of plants. Okay, so flowers are the reproductive organs of plants. What's that mean? Plants, to grow, to reproduce, it will need flowers. So then if we will take a look on flower, we will see a flower. It looks like this, and it has different parts, each part with a specific function for it. Firstly, a plant, it consists of two parts, or the reproductive organs. We have two types of reproductive organs. We have the male reproductive organ, okay, which is this one, these two parts, okay, this we call them male, okay, reproductive organs. And here, if you look at this part, okay, this one, this part, this is the female reproductive organ. Female reproductive organ. Okay, now let's see what is the function of each part. Okay, firstly, let's take a look on all the parts of it. Now, as we said, we have the male, this one, reproductive organ and the female reproductive organ. Then, in addition to these two main organs or two main parts, we have other parts. Firstly, this part, the colored part, we call it petal. Petal. Petal, it's the colored leaves. Okay. The function of these colored leaves, it's to attract the insects. Attracts insects. Example, bees. The function of these bees is to help these plants to reproduce. How? We will see later. Then, petal, the first one. Then the green leaf, as you can see, this part, okay, we call it sepal. So petal, sepal are just two secondary organs or accessory organs. These organs, it just help it protect the flower, it help the flower for the process of reproduction. But because we are talking about the reproductive organ or about reproduction, so we will care mostly about these two main organs, the female reproductive organ and male reproductive organ. Okay, so here we will see the function of each part. As we said, petal, okay, usually most colorful part of flower. The function of it, it's to attract insect or birds to the flower. Okay, petal, attract insects or birds to the flower. Then, after that, we have pollen. Okay, the insects or birds feed on sweet, sugary nectar produced at the base of petal. They may also eat some of the pollen. Pollen, what do you mean by pollen? It's the sex cells, or it's the reproductive cells for the plant. These pollen are produced in the anther. Here, this part, the anther. Okay, anther. It's a part of male reproductive organ. The function of it is to make the pollen. Okay, then pollen, okay, produced in anther. So if you will have a question, it says, what is the function of anther? So the function of anther is to produce the pollen. Then after that, the female gametes are inside the ovule, which are inside the ovary. Here it's the ovary. This part, it's like oval. It has oval shape. This is the ovary. Inside it, okay, this part, we call it ovule. Ovule, it's what? It's the gamete of female cells. Okay. Then 1.5. 1.5, it's about pollination. Pollination. Pollination, it's a process for reproduction. So if you want to give a definition for pollination, we will say it's the transfer of pollen. Okay, the transfer of pollen from anther to the stigma. Here we have pollens. Pollens inside anther. So the transfer of pollen from anther to the stigma, this process, we call it pollination. Okay, this process, we call it pollination. So as we just said, pollination, it's the transfer of pollen from anther to the stigma, which is called pollination. But how this pollen will transfer from anther to the stigma? By what? By the help of what? This process, it happened by the help of many things. For example, firstly, insects. When you look at flowers, you will see bees are moving from one flower to the other, from one flower to another. So here what is happening, when a bee is sit on a flower, some of these pollens will stick to the body of it. Then when this bee it moves to the other flower, what will happen? Some of these pollens will be transferred to the next flower. So this is first example. The second example is by wind. Pollens are tiny, are small and light, so it can move, it can be pushed by air. So by wind, during a windy day, so what will happen? Some of these pollens will transfer from one flower to another, or sometimes by for example, animals, as you can see at this example. If you look at this example, we have a bird. Okay, so here are some ways in which pollen grains will transfer from anther to the stigma. Okay, now some questions. Why are the female gametes found in a flower? What's the function? Why the gametes are found in a flower? So the answer is to what? To reproduce. Then where are the male gametes found in a flower? If we will go back to the structure of flower, okay, where we can find the pollen, or where we can the pollen gametes, we can find them here inside the anther. Question number 3. Explain why plants need help to get their male gametes to their female gametes. Okay, explain why these gametes, the male gametes, should get to the female gamete. What do you think? So the answer here will be to reproduce. So it can fertilize each other and then reproduce. 1.6 fertilization. Now, after we talked about the structure of plant, parts of flower, and the process of pollination, now we will start talking about fertilization. What's fertilization, or what do you mean by fertilization? In pollination, we said the pollen will transfer from anther to stigma, and then it goes through the flower part. Let's go back here. So when the pollen will transfer from anther to the stigma, then it goes through the pollen tube. Okay, it goes from anther to stigma, then it goes through the style until it reaches the ovary and then ovule. So pollen, it has nucleus in it. So this part we will call it nucleus. And same thing here, we have nucleus. So when the nucleus of pollen join with nucleus of ovule, joining of nucleus of pollen with the nucleus of ovule, this process we call it fertilization. Okay, so in sexual reproduction here, by the way, students, you need to focus on the parts that I highlight them, because these are the most important parts. So in sexual reproduction, the nucleus of male gamete, which is pollen, okay, and the nucleus of female gamete, which is the ovule, join together. This process we call it fertilization. Then after that, now we have male. So here we have the male cell, the female cell. When this male and female cell, okay, join together, they form a new cell. This cell, we call it what? We call it zygote. So what do we call this cell? It's zygote. So if we want to give a definition for zygote, we will say when the nuclei of the two gametes have joined together, they form a new cell. This cell is called zygote. So now if you look at this drawing here, this drawing, it shows the fertilization in a flower. So here firstly we have pollen. Okay, a tube grows out of pollen grain on the stigma. By the way, here the process of photosynthesis, it's happening after the process of fertilization. So a tube, it will grows from the pollen. Here it's the tube. It goes through the stigma, then style, until it will reach the ovary and then the ovule. Here, the male gamete fuses with the female gamete inside the ovule. So here, what is happening, the nucleus of male gamete will join to the female, to the nucleus of female gamete. Okay, so when these two nucleus fuse with each other, now this process we call it fertilization. Then after fertilization, some changes will happen to the plant. For example, here we have what do we call it seed formation. Seed formation, what do you mean by seed formation is when the male nucleus fuses with the female nucleus inside the ovule, as we said, they will produce a zygote. So this zygote, okay, start to divide. So here it's the zygote. This zygote will start to divide. It will be in this shape. Okay, so here what is happening, it's dividing, it's making more new cells. So this zygote will turn to be embryo, while the ovule, okay, here it's the green part, the ovule will turn to be seed. So here it's how seed it will. 1.7 fruits, how fruits will form after fertilization, after forming the embryo and the seed. So here, this part, what do you think? What do we call this part? What is the name of this part? This part, we call it ovary. So after fertilization, the ovary will turn to be fruit. The ovary will turn to be fruit. So just focus on these two parts. Ovary will turn to be fruit, while ovule will turn to be seed. Okay. So this was everything about Unit 1. I hope you will get benefit from it. If you have any questions, if you have something that's still not clear, you can contact me.